Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, one and all, and happy May Day. It's going to be May. It is 6:07 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news. I'm Andrew Langer, in for Larry O'Connor. Today, sitting alongside the lovely and talented Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercy.
Good morning, Andrew. It's just what I usually say. So.
Yes, no, that's fine. Listen, so we got a great show today, as we always do in this hour. Actually, we'll get to that in a second. We got Ben Carson joining us in the next hour. I'm going to be talking about the 100 days. I got to get your thoughts on the 100 days, Mercy. Nick Minnock from WJLA is going to be joining us as well. This hour, we got Michael Toth. He's an attorney. He's going to be talking about yesterday's very important arguments, lots of important cases, as they always are in the Supreme Court. This one over religious schools that are charter schools that are funded with government money. But listen, I got to go to this. I am sitting back and watching with bated breath every moment of this fight between James Carville and David Hogg. James Carville, who was the architect, one of the architects of Bill Clinton's 1992 victory, old, steady, maybe not so steady sometimes, Democratic hand, and the untested, untried, but very much in demand David Hogg. Mercy, I think you're watching this with bated breath as well.
Yeah, it is the clash of what I would say, a very popular Democrat political strategist, someone who never holds back, James Carville, with whether you agree with him or not. He is a colorful personality. And then David Hogg, who, is this up-and-comer generation. And I think James Carville had very direct words to say to David Hogg. Let's go to cut 10.
Mainly, I think that, and I would imagine James agrees with this, is the main message that people are hearing is just that we're against Donald Trump. That is not enough. We need to have a positive vision for the future. And I think what we should be standing for is talking about what is our vision and how are we fighting back against Donald Trump and the corruption that empowered him. What are we doing to revive the American dream? Since in the past 40 years, so many of the foundational building blocks of that dream have become astronomically more expensive and out of reach for far too many people, whether that is the cost of healthcare, whether that is the cost of education or housing, or so many of the foundational building blocks that enable people to get ahead. And I think the message that we need to have is, what are we doing to revive that American dream and fight back against the special interests that killed it, and also reform our campaign finance system to fight the corruption that is preventing it from being revived in the first place.
Listen, I hope and pray every day that David Hogg's vision prevails, because what he seems to not understand is America does not want what David Hogg is peddling. We've seen this before. We've been down this road. We go down we saw this under the 4 years of Joe Biden being president. All of these things David Hogg is talking about, the Democrats tried to deliver on Joe Biden. Joe Biden felt that he had this mandate in the wake of Donald Trump. And we saw what happened with prices going up and the American dream getting out of reach for millions of Americans. And they're like, enough of that already. But James Carville, again, who, unlike David Hogg, actually has some success in managing candidates to victory. James Carville, and I'm a believer in this. I don't know about you, Mercy. I'm a believer in what I call the judo school of politics, which is never do to your opponent what your opponent is going to do to himself or herself, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to do their work for you. Here's cut number 11. Oh, by the way, hold on before we play, Michael. This is on the Tara Palmieri podcast, the two of them appearing on this. Let's go ahead and play it.
Yeah, but James, a few months ago you had a piece in the New York Times. You basically said that Democrats should just play dead and let Trump sabotage himself.
Right.
This sounds very different than what David is suggesting.
Well,
is that right?
Well, first of all, it's kind of hard that everybody's saying the Democrats are playing dead, which might be some truth to that. And Trump is the lowest rated president at this point in history. So something is kind of working. I don't believe in getting in the way of people that are destroying themselves. But I think that the opposition to the Medicaid cuts and the tax cuts framed in the proper way can really give us a roadmap back. And remember, we're going to win Virginia by a lot. And that's going to be a seminal event in American politics.
No, I don't know if it's going to be a seminal event in American politics. Go ahead, Mercy.
But there is a moment in this podcast where literally James Carville is like, where's the young generation? Like, you all are talking about this, but let's be real. Like, it was James Carville who warned against, that basically said Biden should drop out a lot earlier. Like, he was basically signaling, and saying, Democrats, we're in trouble in this presidential race. And so that, I think, was one of the things that James Carville pointed out to David Hogg is like, where is this young generation? We had President Obama. He was like the it figure, and they don't have that right now. And I think that the message is very clear. There is no leadership right now. There's no standout, common sense Democrat out there that can run for president or at this point. Wes Moore is the one they're going to probably go to.
Probably.
Speaking about a Maryland man. But the reality is that if you're talking about AOC, if you're talking about Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, if you're talking about Bernie Sanders, I mean, it is a group. Talk about May Day. It is a group of communists, basically progressives, that are have literally hijacked the party.
No common sense Democrat can win the nomination. I mean, maybe Wes Moore appears to be more common sense than others. But that's exactly it. The other thing that Carville is counting on is the fact that the media won't challenge him on the big lie, right? Because it was Joe Biden and the Democrats who siphoned $250 billion out of Medicare to pay for the Green New Deal. And yet it's Donald Trump that they're talking about this. Let's go here because it gets to the meat of Carville's criticism, which is Hogg wants to primary challenge Democrats to. By the way, what Hogg is talking about here, when he talks about challenging primary Democrats to bring in new blood, he is talking about further radicalizing the Democratic coalition. That's what he's talking about here. Let's play cut 12.
Okay, so James, you've had some words though for David and like what he's doing in terms of supporting some primary challengers who are, that would be taking out perhaps like an older guard. It's not necessarily older people, but people that he says are asleep. And you said that members of the DNC should sue him for doing this since David is a member of the party leadership. He is the vice chairman.
I think he's the vice chair.
Yeah, he's vice chair.
Let me be very specific. I think it is abominable that an official of a political party who is being paid or supported by that political party to go out and raise money to defeat members of the same party. I think that's of the highest level.
James, can you tell me
if you want to beat Republicans, of which of course lefties never do, they never even run against them. That's one thing. I'm not into beating Democrats. I'm into beating Republicans.
That's exactly it. Listen, we're going to continue to talk about this, Mercy. We're going to continue to have this discussion about this infighting in just a moment. But first, it is 5:15. I'm sorry, it's 6:15 a.m.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So a lot of this comes up, this infighting between David Hogg and James Carville. This morning it comes up in addition to their appearance on the Tara Palmieri podcast, because we're going to talk about it. We're going to get another clip there. But this tweet yesterday from James Carville last night, I'll do a James Carville impression. Just call David Hogg. He reminded me of the story of after the Battle of Shiloh. Henry Halleck urged President Lincoln to fire Ulysses Grant. Lincoln said, "I can't fire him. This man fights. David Hogg fights. The DNC needs him." Now, Breitbart reposted this with a ha ha ha. I don't know if this was meant to be tongue in cheek or what. Go ahead, Mercy.
I think he got a phone call that it was like, "Can you please stop and let's not hit this young kid?" James Carville is like unhinged right now. He does his interviews like I sometimes see him like, and he's like in a lake house or some sort of strange place in the globe, and he is just letting it all rip. And they're like, "Wait a second. All right, maybe we do this in closed doors," which is what Democrats normally do.
Yes.
And don't criticize in public. But I do think that you're seeing this tension happening within the Democrat Party where, it was the party of Nancy Pelosi at one time. It was the party of President Obama at one time. It is no Bill Clinton. That's not it anymore. It is totally disheveled. No one knows who's directing the message, and it's very clear that they can't seem to agree, and the tension really does exist. I don't think there's moderate Democrats anymore.
I agree.
But it does exist between these progressives that really have the louder mic of bullhorn right now, as opposed to the ones that you would say, okay, are the more traditional Democrats.
Listen, it is the difference, because it is May Day. It is the difference, the Democratic constituency. There are no common sense Democrats. There are no centrist Democrats. It's the difference between Maoists and Stalinists, Marxists and Che Guevaras. Go ahead.
Culturally, they all believe in this craziness of biological men playing in women's sports, that there are 60-something genders, their obsession with the LGBTQ agenda. But I do have to say, David Hogg is facing his own challenge, not only with James Carville, but also with this woman who lost out of becoming a Democratic National Committee vice chairman to David Hogg, now is challenging her defeat. Kaylin Free, she's a Native American attorney, and she's coming right at it, saying, look, this is discrimination, and I should be in the seat. And she argues that she lost what they call a fatally flawed election that violated the DNC charter and discriminated against 3 women of color candidates.
Right.
Again, identity politics at its best
100%,
in the Democrat Party.
It's interesting. You and I ought to talk about doing a joint piece. Not that we need to tell Democrats how they ought to win, but maybe doing a piece where we underline the relationship between the Democrats becoming unrooted from any kind of objective truth and this sort of morass they find themselves in. And by the way, if you want to think about who's right or who's wrong in all of this, you need to ask yourselves this question. If Republicans wind up losing in Virginia this coming fall, is it because of anything that the Democrats did, or is it because of what the Republicans seem to be doing to themselves? Let's play cut 13 here, Michael.
James, I would say, first of all, I am not paid to be a vice chair. The vice chair role is not a paid role at all. It's a volunteer role. What I would also say to that is that I think it's possible for us to do 2 things at once. We do, at my organization, Leaders We Deserve, support challenging Republicans that are in very vulnerable seats. And last cycle, we helped to break the majority for Democrats to have a 1-seat majority in the Virginia state legislature by spending $100,000 to do that. We spent $100,000 to support the candidate who broke the supermajority in North Carolina. We spent $1 million on frontline races that were critical to helping break majorities in states around the country.
Yeah, but again, I go down this road and I ask the question, did you really do it? Obviously the money helps, the activism helps. But if you believe in the judo school of politics, never do to your opponent what your opponent could just as easily do to himself or herself. Let's go here because I want to get your reaction to this, Mercy. Let's play cut 14.
And I think what we need to do right now is both things. We need to make sure that people have the strongest representation possible. Like, James, I imagine that you think that Hakeem Jeffries is doing a relatively good job, right?
Well, it doesn't matter that I think he is. I think he's doing fine, but the caucus thinks he is. I was invited to speak to the caucus, 5 or 6 weeks ago. And my job, I think about it, to the extent I have one, is to beat Republicans. And I just will tell you right to your face, I think it's abominable that you have anything to do with the DNC and you're going to go and raise $20 million to beat other Democrats. I don't think other Democrats are the problem we have in the United States today. I think it's Republicans, and I think all of our efforts and all of our force should be going to elect Republicans.
James, I think
I can't make it any simpler than that.
Yeah. No, listen, it's simple and straightforward. David Hogg wants to radicalize the party. James Carville recognizes that there is this common sense milieu. Mercy, you got some final thoughts here?
Yeah, I think that James Carville understands, like, he at his peak, he knew how to win elections.
Yes.
He's trying to get the Democrats back to the basics, and you keep hearing this where the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class. They have abandoned the youth, abandoned Hispanics, abandoned Black voters. What's happening is that those voters have moved towards Donald Trump. So this is going to be a battle for those votes in the center, those that really don't care about party affiliation. and really trying to keep the Democrats united. And quite sadly, the Democrats, they're so extreme on their positions, especially on the cultural issues, that it does not work. So they're going to have to decide what lane they're going to go down the road in these next upcoming elections.
Conservatives need to deliver on their promises and stick together. That's what we need to do. So much more to get to right here. It's 624 on WMAL. The Supreme Court has taken up the case of whether or not government monies can be used to pay for religious-oriented charter schools. Michael Toth joins us in the next hour. I'm Andrew Langer. She's Mercedes Schlapp. This is O'Connor Company on WMAL.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, one and all. I am Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor, sitting alongside Mercedes Schlapp here on O'Connor Company. Good morning, Mercy.
Good morning, Andrew.
It is 6:37 here on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. We're going to have Ben Carson joining us in about a half hour to talk about the first 100 days. Nick Minnock from WJLA ABC7 joining us. But right now, we've got Michael Toth. He's an attorney. He's in private practice. And a fellow with the University of Texas Civitas Institute and the Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunity. Big discussions at the Supreme Court yesterday. There's been a lot of discussion about the balance between public accommodation and religious freedom and what's happening. Michael, tell us a little bit about this case and what happened yesterday up at the High Court.
Yeah, Andrew, Mercy, thank you so much for having me on, and delighted to unpack it for you yesterday. At the Supreme Court, the justices heard argument concerning a school called St. Isidore. And St. Isidore is poised to be our country's first religious charter school. And so what the case is really about is whether charter schools are going to treat faith-based organizations equal to secular organizations. So it really comes down to parental choice, competition in education, and whether we're going to discriminate on the basis of religion or not when it comes down to essential social services for oftentimes the most disadvantaged population. So really spirited exchange between the justices and the attorneys. But, I feel listening to the argument, cautiously optimistic that we're going to have a victory for more parental choice when the decision comes out in June, likely. So
in essence, there is this. It seems that the Supreme Court justices, those that are the more strict constitutionalists, the conservatives, will obviously rule in favor. They're leaning towards this. This would be historic, I think, for religious education and school choice. But there is always that question with John Roberts. What's your sense when you were listening to what he had to say?
Yeah, Mercy, it's a great question. This case didn't come out of a vacuum. It didn't come from nowhere. The reality is that from 2017 to 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court issued three separate opinions, three major opinions that really address this question. Trinity Lutheran, Espinoza, and Carson are the names of the three cases. And in each of those three cases, the U.S. Supreme Court sided for more educational choice, including allowing parents and students to go to religious schools in voucher programs and other kinds of public programs that are available in the states, and were available only if you avoided religious institutions. Each of those opinions was written by Chief Justice John Roberts. I had a piece that came out 2 days ago in the National Review Online, and I encourage all listeners to check out the piece. But it makes the point that the Chief Justice on religious discrimination has been clear as a bell. So I think if the court follows its recent precedents, we're looking good. So we'll see how it comes out. Obviously, nobody's got a crystal ball, but I think, the court has been very clear, this particular court, just like Chief Justice Roberts has been very clear on race-based discrimination. Religious discrimination, race-based discrimination are just against the law. And as a country, we need to sort of move on and trust parents, trust your judgment, to make the best decisions for their kids in education.
We're talking with Michael Toth. He's an attorney in private practice. He's a fellow with the University of Texas Civitas Institute and the Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunity. Michael, Mercy and I have been talking a little bit this morning about sort of the departure from objective truth on the part of the Democrats and how this has played into their electoral politics. Let's talk about it from the public policy standpoint and the importance of these kinds of institutions and how the public can best be served by having schools like St. Isidore's, be serving their communities.
Yeah, 100%. I think it ties into that also, too. Andrew and Mercy, I know just before the break, talking about the first 100 days of the Trump administration. You're going to have Dr. Ben Carson on coming up. That's fantastic. I think this is also a first 100-day story. So at the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday, it wasn't just attorneys from St. Isidore that were arguing on behalf of parental choice here. The United States, the U.S. Justice Department also appeared. So John Sauer, which is a name that's, lawyers are very familiar with that name. John Sauer is a fantastic appellate advocate. He's now the U.S. Solicitor General. So the U.S. Senate recently confirmed him as our Solicitor General. And he made his first appearance in that role as U.S. Solicitor General for the Trump administration. And he argued on behalf of allowing these faith-based charter schools to move forward. It was his first argument as the Trump administration Solicitor General. So the Trump administration came down squarely on the side of parental choice. And they've been signaling this, obviously, with what they've been doing at the U.S. Department of Education, with the historic executive order that they put out. Also, just one last detail. Back in 2020, in the first Trump administration, the Trump Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, OLC, very important part of the Justice Department, analyzing federal law, analyzing the Constitution, put out an opinion in 2020 saying that faith-based charter schools could not be discriminated against under the First Amendment of the Constitution. So the Trump administration has been very strong here. I think this is the first 100-day story for them to appear in this case. And, obviously, we're hoping that parents will get a victory here.
Well, Michael, listen, I've tweeted out this great piece from the National Review Online, Religious Charter Schools Should Pass the Supreme Court Test. How do folks find out more about the good work that you are doing?
Oh, thanks so much. Well, I'm a resident fellow at the Foundation for Research and Equal Opportunity, FREOP. That's www.freeop.org, and also at the Civitas Institute at the University of Texas. You can search for us as well. And we've got all our pieces up and more to come.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Toth, for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
We got so much more coming up at 6:44 a.m. here on WMAL.
Later this morning on The Chris Plante Show, has Big Mike Obama just come out?
That warms my heart, particularly as a black man.
9 a.m. on WMAL.
This is why I'm glad that I'm on the air with you, Mercy, today, because these are issues that are near and dear to my heart. We've been talking about this issue of the Democrats the left becoming completely untethered from any sort of objective truth. We've got this story out of Loudoun County. We're going to be joined by Nick Minnock from WJLA ABC 7 just after 7 o'clock this morning. And this story that this Loudoun County Aquatics director was fired, and it all started with her releasing there was some work travel that was being done, and she dared put the real name. She started with her daring to put the real name of one of the employees who happens to be transgender in an email, and it goes down from there. Essentially, she kept trying to deal with this problem employee, and when push came to shove, she was the one pushed out, which is just insane. Christina Hart is the aquatics director. I mean, this is a problem. Go ahead, please.
No. I think it is so horrific. I mean, someone who really, she said, she's built this program from the ground up. She, under her leadership, this aquatic center, they've hosted 1,000 visitors per week. I mean, someone who really was part of this community, and then all of a sudden, because I believe this transgender employee complained about her, she was fired. Because what are they worried about? Are they worried about a lawsuit? Or what are they worried about? And it gets to the point that, you have to ask yourself, is there more to the story that we're not seeing? But at this point, that, according to Hart, Hart said, her boss, that basically the employee's performance was declining.
Right.
If it had been any other employee, they would have terminated, but this employee was protected. And why were they protected? They're transgender, and so they were using that status to keep themselves protected. And it's just horrific what we're seeing here.
I know
terms of the discrimination against this athletic director, this woman.
I'm going to tie this into the other story with Daiba, which is the illegal immigration issue. I know that if I'm driving around and I'm getting multiple tickets, driving on a suspended license in the D.C. area, I'm going to get arrested and I'm going to do time. That's an expectation here. But if you're an illegal, apparently, no, that's not the case. You can get dozens of tickets. Apparently, you can be a miserable transgender employee in an aquatics facility, which disturbs me to no end. And if your boss dares to complain about you, the boss is the one who's going to get fired. This is where we are in America in 2020. Nick Minnock from WJLA is going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes. It's 6:52 here on WMAL. Listen, we got a great hour coming up here on O'Connor & Company. Ben Carson joining us to talk about the first 100 days, and then Nick Minnock is going to be joining us from WJLA ABC 7 to talk about this situation in Loudoun County. This aquatics director fired for doing her job, which is just insane. I'm Andrew Langer. That's Mercedes Schlapp. It's O'Connor & Company here on WMAL. It is 7 a.m.
WMAL FM.